If you want to stand out, build trust, and attract the right clients, you need a real strategy. And today we're getting into how to position yourself as the go-to expert in your space, why narrowing your focus makes marketing way easier, and how to target high-ticket clients. Welcome into It's Not Just Talking. I'm Vince Quinn, your executive producer, here to help you sharpen your podcast strategy, improve your production processes, and build your hosting skills so you can put more time back into your business. And today, we're joined by Ann Carden. Ann is a leading business growth expert, marketing strategist, and consultant with over 43 years of experience. As the CEO of A. Carden Incorporated, an expert in attraction marketing and media, Ann helps coaches, consultants, and professional entrepreneurs in over 80-plus industries scale their businesses. It's a great conversation with Ann, and here it is. So, Ann, I want to get started with something that I think is core to really the modern landscape of being an owner for a business, the modern landscape of content. And it's something that it's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the show. When you were first introduced to me, you've mentioned engineering celebrity. So let's start there. And what does that mean? Let's talk about engineering celebrity.
Yes, it is about really being seen and recognized in your industry or your niche as like being at the top of your game. So if you think about someone that is a celebrity, someone that you maybe follow or you admire or you pay attention to, you can engineer that. We are in a market where you can now engineer that and you can actually do it very cost effectively. So if you think about the the gurus that are out there that have millions of dollars, or the Apple or McDonald's, or the people that have millions of dollars. Well, now we have leveled the playing field and we actually can engineer that for ourselves and we can do it a lot more cost effective.
Yeah, which can be everywhere, right? Which is why I think it's so great to talk to.
Omnipresent.
Yeah,
Yes,
and you
absolutely.
are omnipresent, and I mean, just going through a list of some of the things that you've got, right? Author, speaker, your coach, magazine. You have a magazine. I mean,
Mhm.
you're engineering it everywhere. So, like, first off, how, and I think this is a question a lot of people have is like, how do you find the time to be in so many places? Because you're engineering it everywhere. How do you manage engineering it in like such a big ecosystem that you've built?
It's really strategy and it's having a game plan that's going to really leverage your time. But I am not solo. I have a team. Here's the thing, when you really do this in the right way, it's again very cost effective to do it and you can do it very simply. So I have, I just got back from 2 weeks in Jamaica. I did not even hardly open my computer. I think I probably spent 30 minutes maybe total in 2 weeks doing anything. And that was just answering a couple of messages from my team. So when you really do this in the right way, you can repurpose your content. We just have so many opportunities available to us today to be seen everywhere. And it's just a matter of having the right strategy and the right pieces in place to be able to do that.
Yeah, so let's talk strategy then, right?
Yeah.
Because from that standpoint, like let's say I'm a business owner, I'm just getting started in whatever field, and I'm trying to begin building this celebrity and begin engineering. Like how should I get started in that process?
Yeah, I think the very first thing you want to do is really decide who you're trying to reach. If you don't start there, then you're going to be wasting a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort. So know exactly who you're trying to reach, what you're trying to accomplish with your business, and then once you do that, you can determine where's the best place for that. And I always say you don't have to try to be on 20 channels at one time. Pick the main channel where your people are and start there and start building out something very robust. One thing that we are up against in the marketplace today that is we've never really seen before is competition is fiercer than it's ever been. I mean, in every niche, in every market, people are now competing with so many people. And I will say the ones that are playing the bigger game, the ones that can get attention, they can turn that attention into currency and gold. So if you don't do that, if you don't think like that, which a lot of people don't, then you're going to miss out on the business and other people are going to win the business over you.
Yeah, and I want to get a little bit more into niching down, but give me a second for a little side tangent here. I'll bring it back around, I promise. But that idea of the end result of niching, where you're saying it's so much easier to understand the kinds of people that you want to talk to, which means the kinds of things that you want to talk about, and also the kinds of places that you want to be. And I think that's huge because one of the things, for example, for me, it was like when online dating first became a big thing, people were like, oh, what's this? And I don't understand it. And it's like, what's this weird thing? But when you thought about the simplicity of everybody that's on this app is interested in dating,
Exactly.
right? Like
Yes.
it's one to one. It's a beautiful thing. And it was like, okay, so I can go on these apps and you might look at that as being strange, sure. But if I'm going to a bar or a club or whatever it is, like I don't know who any of those people are. I don't know what the relationships are. I don't know who they came in the door with. Like, so to be able to have that simplicity, it's the same kind of thing. So I think what people struggle with though is making that disconnection for the people that are not that client and the commitment to the person who is. And for you as a business coach, like what are some of the ways that you help people get to that point? How do you get someone to make it okay to not chase everything?
Well, first of all, they have to realize it doesn't mean you have to live there forever. And that's one thing. But if from a marketing standpoint, what's the saying? You can't chase a lot of rabbits, right? And so if you think about from a marketing standpoint, okay, let's just say I'm not a web designer, but let's say I'm a web designer and I'm standing in front of a chiropractor. And then my buddy over here is a web designer. He does websites for business owners. I do websites for chiropractors. Who do you think is going to get the business? The person that does the website for a chiropractor. Also, do you now know where you can find them? Would it be easier to go market to chiropractors than to go out to every business and say, I build websites for businesses? And so, if you're trying to be for everybody, and this sounds so basic, I'm so used to saying this, but if you're trying to be for everybody, you're for nobody. So, it really is about streamlining your marketing. It does not mean you have to stay there forever. But if you don't get one vertical working or you don't get one marketing strategy working, for your business, it's like spray and pray, and you're just making it so hard for yourself.
Yeah, like to be able to simplify it and then be able to hit that again and again with some reliability makes it so much easier. For example, with us, right? So we're launching an ad campaign soon. So as we're talking right
Mhm,
now and recording this, like a week from now, we will start running ads on podcasts.
mhm.
So interesting thing for us, very excited about it for a lot of reasons. But we started with picking one single demographic.
Yes.
So, right. So it's like business podcasts. So we wanted to get all these different kinds of shows that talk about business because we know generally people that are listening might have a business. They're more likely. And then within that, we picked a single age demographic. So just to start, it's men, let's say like 45 to 55 or whatever it told us to
Mhm.
do. So, okay, this is the first thing. We're going to start there. We'll see how it goes. Then we'll probably A/B test a little bit with women and see how it goes in the same age demographic. But it's like, at the very least, we can get some understanding of, is this the right direction or not? Are these people
Mhm.
responding to it? Are we getting the kind of results? And at the same time, I think it's going into it knowing what kind of results we actually want, right?
Yes.
Because you've touched on that a little bit, and I do think it's everything to say, okay, well, here's what we sell. Like we spent a lot of time developing our product and our offering, and now that we've solidified that, now it's like, okay, let's bring this to market and do it in an aggressive, targeted way, and see how that all translates.
Right. And people will respond when they know you're for them. So if I put out an ad, and this works for an ad, it works for a message, it works for how you're seen in the market. And the other thing is, a lot of times people think, when they think about like niching or they think about getting a specific demographic, it can also be a specific offer. So let's say, for example, I want to work with small business owners that have been in business 3 years and they're under $1 million and I want to help them get to over $1 million. Well, that now is pretty specific, right? And so you can market that way too, but you've got to know very clearly. I mean, you really have to have that clarity and define exactly who you want so that you can speak to them. So the message is right to them. I mean, I work with coaches, consultants, and professional entrepreneurs. That's kind of a wide range, but what do I help them do? I help them engineer their celebrity, be influential in the market, and build really premium high-end businesses. That's specific. So it can be your offer too.
Yeah. So I love that because I mean, one, everybody wants that, right? I think everybody listening right now is like, that sounds amazing, and I would love that. Because I mean, it's so simple and clean and organized, like everything I've seen. And I mentioned this to you before we started recording, but, and this is part of what I love about podcasting is we connect. I think you're really interesting. I then start getting emails from you. I see your masterclass. The masterclass is great. And it's just like to have all these different connections, to learn all these different skills. And it's all part of, for me, in that same way, engineering celebrity and trying to build a bigger business. Like
Mhm.
you see how this all connects, and it's really it's it's hard to describe the like exponential value of getting yourself out there and just the compounding effects of how all of these things pile up and benefit you. I mean, it's like how long have you been doing this, and in terms of running the podcast or even just guesting on shows? Like, how long have you been doing this aspect of the celebrity engineering for?
You know what's so interesting is I actually did this in my second business, and I was the number one health club in my town. And even now, people still remember me from that business because I built such a big brand. And I mean, I really, my husband used to laugh. We would go to the store and and everybody'd be like, Ann, almost and I don't mean this to sound arrogant because it was kind of embarrassing, but almost like I was a celebrity. And he'd say, do you know everybody? Do you know everybody? And it did seem like that, but that's the opportunity that we have today. So I actually have been doing this probably 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Um, Through all of my businesses, I realized I've always been very well known in my local market. When I came online about 15 years ago, I then started doing it online. So this whole concept I've been doing for many, many years. As far as my podcast and guesting on podcasts, the last 4 or so, but I've always done things where I was in the spotlight, always speaking on stages, always doing charity events. So even when I was doing things offline, I was always out there in the spotlight, and that's really what I teach people. It's your biggest leverage. It's people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust, and so the more you're out there, the more you're in the spotlight, the more that you build that trust and that credibility, and the more attention you get. And it's like I said at the very beginning, attention is golden currency in your business.
100%. And that's why from the speaking standpoint, right? Being in front of a room, to just be in front of somebody, have them paying attention to you, and you're just delivering value for an hour. You can't beat it.
No.
It's crazy. I mean, it's the same thing. Like if you're podcasting and that's something at home that you're doing and it's a part of your business, great. But are you getting on stages, right? Are you leveraging that for the opportunity to do it? It's the same thing. It's the same information. It's the same value. And if you're not running the event yourself, which can be a ton of hard work, like try to find ways to be a guest, get featured on a panel, like building those things out, because it's just it's so much easier and so much well, it's not so much easier, but it's so connected, and it's not really more work for you because it's the same information, right? Like how
Yeah.
easy is it for you, and just generally speaking, to have with all these things, author, speaker, coach, magazine, podcast, like everything, to just you're talking about the same stuff everywhere, right?
Yeah, and here's the thing. Here's the crazy thing. I call these really high impact marketing strategies. So let me just give you sort of a way that this all works. So when I'm out there with my podcast or I'm guesting on podcasts, number one, I get clients. I get clients from people that host me on their show. So I'm a guest, and I get clients from people that I put on my show. It's actually one of the strategies I teach my clients because you can get to high level people with a podcast. So it breaks down those walls. It builds that know, like, and trust really fast. It builds that relationship. And so you actually can use this as a strategy. But then here's the cool thing, you're now also out there visible and you're promoting other people. Other people are promoting you. So now you have a bigger reach with your audience. You get to use that as great content. You can cut it up. You can put it everywhere. You can transcribe it. You can turn it into articles. You can and then you'll actually have things coming to you. Like I've had 2 or 3 speaking engagements come to me that I have coming up, and it really came from all the stuff that I'm out there doing. I didn't go looking for these speaking engagements. They came to me. So when you're out there doing all this, those things will, not that I don't still go and look for things. I'm not saying that. It's not like everything comes to you, but things will come to you. Opportunities will come to you, partnerships, referral partners. Also, my podcast, I do a lot of virtual events. So I always talk about build your own stage. A podcast is a form of building your own stage. But then I also invite people into my virtual events from my podcast. So maybe they don't become a client, but maybe my virtual event might be a good fit for them. And they get to come and experience me. And then often those turn into that gets clients, right? So it all works together. It's not like you're doing this and then you're doing this and then you're doing this. It's everything is really cohesive, and it's all really high impact, and it's all leveraged. It's like in a way, a one-to-many approach, and you can repurpose it all. So when you ask, like, how much time do you take? Okay, my assistant books me on podcasts. Most of the time, a lot of those podcasts come to me, people wanting me to be on, but my assistant books me. Stages, I do both booking and they come to me. Content, it's my assistant gets my content out there. I mean, there's not a lot of time that I really have to spend other than getting on here with great people like you, Vince, and having some fun.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the best part. I just show up.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so much joy. And when you get these kinds of things like where it's a good conversation, you're going places, like it's a good exchange. That's really what it's all about too, because sometimes you also get on shows where, and I say this to people all the time, if you're going to be on a show or you're going to have a show, be engaged in what's going on, right? Because if
Absolutely. Yes.
like, could you imagine if, like, okay, I book you for the show, you come on, and then I've just got like 15 questions that I've pre-written. They're all the same.
Uh,
I ask,
Ugh. Well, first of all, that does not speak expert. I just want you to know.
yes,
If you're looking to really build a celebrity brand, so to speak, kind of be seen as an expert and an authority in your niche, sitting there asking questions that are kind of curated are does not really it doesn't really leverage you as, and it doesn't really help you show up as somebody who's an expert and a pro. It's like you really could almost throw anything at me, Vince, and I can answer you. And that's what you have to get to that point. So if you're just only answering questions or asking questions, you're kind of missing out on the opportunity for that to really be a great conversation.
yeah, I think you limit yourself on the freedom to take
You
risks,
do. Mhm.
right? And what you get as a lack of that, and what the audience might not get as a result of that. Because, for example, like, I have no problem at times where I don't know anything about a certain thing. I'll just ask. It's
Sure.
just, but I think people, they tend to try to over prepare as a host with
Mhm.
the idea of, I'm going to mask that I don't know anything about this. Like, let me research this or ask questions in a way where I can dodge this subject or whatever, when you might as well just be open about it, because it's going to take you better places with you and that person. You're going to get the right information out, and it makes you a better interviewer. Like,
Yes.
it's the whole goal. You were competing, like you said. I mean, there's just so much competition out there, and if you're not going to dedicate the time to lend your actual voice, then you're robbing yourself. You've made yourself
Yes.
bland because you're not willing to say, like, hey, I don't know anything about this literally at all. I don't understand it. I couldn't
Mhm.
explain it to a 5-year-old. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it works. Like, great, but people aren't willing to admit that. That makes you different.
But
So
that's why but that's also why you're interviewing them. That gives that other person a real platform to share their expertise. So I one thing that I do when I interview people a lot of times is I'll say, "What do you specifically want to come out in this show? Like, what are some talking points that you really want me to hit on that we can discuss, so that I want to make sure that I'm shining a light on you and your expertise and what you're doing." And so they'll give me 2 or 3 things, and then that's what we use. That's what we that is all I typically get from people other than their bio, which I may or may not read. Sometimes I'll just tell them to introduce themselves, right? So there's a lot of ways you can run a show, but at the end of the day, it has to be interesting. And I believe when people are hearing organic conversation, you don't ever know where that's going to go. I mean, if you have such a dry podcast, like if I say, Vince, what color shirt are you wearing?
yeah, and it's
Gray.
gray.
It's
It's
great.
dull.
Okay, there we go. Okay, Vince, what color hair do you have? I mean, that's kind of how it comes off, right? So you don't want that kind of a show.
Yeah. How'd you get started in business?
Yes.
Please tell me. And then it's like, oh my, they say this on every show. Do we have to do this again?
Yeah,
Please.
exactly.
So
Yeah. No, instead of saying, "Hey, so tell us what that journey looked like." I mean, that's more interesting, right? Now you're telling the stories and you're pulling people in and, yeah, you're letting them see inside of things more than just answering a question.
If you're listening to this, chances are that your business podcast is struggling, but you're not sure what's holding it back. That's why I created the Podcast Compass Quiz. And in just 5 minutes, you'll get clarity on what's working, what's not, and where to focus your energy next. Best part? It's completely free. So hit the link in the show notes to take the quiz now. Now, let me ask you this, because doing the speaking engagements, being on stages and doing that for a long time, like to have that experience first and then get into podcasting, what were some things from that maybe it made it easy to transition? Or is there anything that stood out once you got into this place where now it's not just necessarily you going out, but it's also this back and forth? Like, what was that like making the adjustment from speaking to podcasting?
Ooh, that's such an interesting question. I've never been asked that. Ooh,
There we go.
yeah, I love it. So I've been speaking on stages, I don't know, probably since I was a kid, to be honest. But when I came on into the online world and everything was video, I remember my first, I'm just going to go back to my very first Facebook Live. Oh my gosh, I was shaking because now you have the technology piece and then you're trying to get the content out there. I mean, it was a disaster, right? And I remember doing first YouTube videos. I didn't know what I was doing, right? So I just had to get started. But when I came into podcasting, I mean, those earlier shows I had to kind of learn. And unfortunately, I didn't really have somebody teaching me how to really build a good podcast strategy and what to do with that. I wasn't afraid to speak to people and I wasn't afraid to do all of that. But I have to say, my shows got a lot better as I got just more comfortable. So some of it, you just have to jump in and do it and start getting, you kind of getting your sea legs, so to speak, is what, what you would say. But, if you don't the one thing I will say though is being on podcasts so much, it's made me better on stages. I mean, more so than the other way. I don't think
Okay.
stages necessarily prepared me for podcasting because this is a technical world. And even though, yes, you're in front of the camera, it's very different. You're not moving around, it's a whole different thing. But I will say that being on podcast has made me much more comfortable and better on stages. So to me, it's a no-brainer to do that.
Interesting. So why do you think that is? What about podcasting made it so much easier?
I do it so much. I mean, I've been on hundreds and hundreds of podcasts. I don't even know how many. And I personally have recorded over 300 shows for my own podcast. So most people haven't been on any kind of stage that much. Plus I've got, I don't know, 1,200 YouTube videos and I've done live streaming. And so all of this online world has just made it so much more comfortable for me to get out in front of people. And the other cool thing is a lot of times people have already seen me or heard me. And so then when I go and speak on a stage, they're like, "Oh my gosh, we're so excited that you're here to speak." Or they will come back and they'll start looking at me online. So they feed each other. Once again, they kind of feed each other. So I think you should be doing both.
Yeah. So, and I'm right now doing both. So I do events pretty
Mhm.
much quarterly. So for one, it's literally the 9 steps to start a podcast. And I just go through it. It's everything that we do ourselves when we launch shows, things we've done for clients. It's things people can do on their own. So I cover all that. Same thing, I promote the podcast when I do it. So at the end, hey, you want all this stuff? Great. Also, I've got my own show about all this. You can go follow the show. So nice and clean. And then, for the show, for this podcast, we've been doing it since October. So it's still pretty new, but
Mhm.
weekly show, plenty of episodes recorded beyond this. Like we're doing pretty well, and we're already seeing the benefits. So
And
it's
you're doing a great job. I mean, you're super comfortable here, Vince. I don't feel like, I mean, full transparency. I've been on a few shows where I was like, okay, it's clear you're really new. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here to help you. Let's make it a great show, right? Because look, we all have to start, right? And I mean, I know how bad I was when I first started, but you're doing a great job.
well, see, it's funny because here's the background for me a little bit. Like the same way you had all the speaking experience and you get into podcasting and like you see how those changes are. And now it's funny how you said podcasting makes speaking easier for me. So I started in radio. So
Ah, yeah.
yeah. So 10 years in radio, it was 4-hour shows. I was producing them, hosting them, like anything you could do in the building, I did it, but primarily a host. And to go from 4 hours of live radio based on sports, so it's all like news is breaking during the show. You have to research what happens after
Mm.
games with different stats and like the
This is
amount
a
of
piece of cake for you.
it's the easiest thing ever. Yeah, this is fast food versus like a Michelin star kitchen. You know what I mean?
That's
Like
right.
it's fast, it's easy, it's clean. So well, it's not clean at fast food, but anyway, so it's yeah, like now it's so easy. And speaking, it's the same thing because I know how to structure an argument. I know how to manage time. So if I'm running a little fast, oh, I can do a little more detail on this. I can dive a little deeper. I've got 5 extra minutes to play with, or whatever. Like you just build that command. So you definitely can't beat it. The value of that is unbelievable. And the confidence, I think. I mean, because when you get these reps, and I'll be curious for clients that you've had, for example, with podcasts, right? Because they're
Mhm.
getting these reps, they're refining their message. They don't have the experience you have. Like, have you seen changes in some of your clients for what their confidence might be in the message from doing a
My
show? Yeah.
gosh. Oh, yeah. So when I have worked with coaches and consultants, and we're just trying to get them out there online, they've experienced with the same thing, the same problem. And they maybe want to get on stages, but they're more in the kind of the startup phase of really getting out there. And it's so much easier for them to get booked if people can go and see them online and see their podcast and hey, they're interviewing people. And I will tell you, I have watched clients level up so much just by having a podcast and getting really out there online. I call it stepping into the expert spotlight online. And it's totally changed for them. And now I'm watching them on big stages and just big, things that have just really grown for them as a result.
It's amazing. So let's pivot a little bit here because one of the things I mentioned earlier, and I'd love to get into this with you, is selling high ticket, right? Because when you're doing all these things, right, like that is the goal. You're building this business, you especially as a coach, consultant, like you're in the space where you want high ticket clients. You're doing the podcast to do that. You're getting on these stages to do it. Everything else that you create is for that goal. So just for the baseline, because not everybody is even familiar necessarily with what constitutes a high ticket item. Like,
Oh, I was gonna start there. Like, what do
yes,
you think a high ticket client is? So, a lot of people out there, especially in the coaching world, we would see that high ticket is like $3,000, $5,000, maybe 10 on the high side. That's not really what I'm talking about at all. When I talk about high ticket, I'm talking about 25,000, 50, six-figure clients, multiple six-figure clients. Like I have a client closed a $400,000 deal. So we're talking really. So I like to actually use premium. It's interesting when I wrote my Expert in You book, how to build a lucrative and impactful coaching and consulting business from your expertise. Not to do a plug there, but
hey, no,
uh,
please, you've earned
I
it. You're good.
I talked about high ticket, and now I'm thinking I'm going to go back and edit the book because high ticket's so overused in our industry that a lot of people, if you talk about high ticket, they're thinking about sort of those little bitty sales. And so I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about much bigger levels. Like I helped a mindset coach who was charging $1,500 start getting a $50,000 client. That's a big jump. That's a big difference. And so I'm talking about those kinds of levels where it's multiple five, even multiple six figures.
Yeah, and so can you talk a little bit about your process? Like, if you're going to just begin to understand the idea of, well, how can I sell high ticket? Like, how do you get started there?
Yes, a big factor is obviously you have to be good at what you do, but you really are selling a result, an outcome, a transformation. And this is where a lot of people they're trying to sell their stuff. I'm a business coach. I'm trying to sell business growth. I actually made that mistake 15 years ago. It didn't work real well. And so I had to learn, okay, what are the results that I know I can get people? So one of the pitches I use, in fact, I have a workshop, a 2-day workshop that I'm doing around this topic tomorrow, how to get 40,000 to $100,000 plus clients, months, or days. That's a very different, so that's my workshop. And one of the reasons I do that is because I can go into all the strategies and everything. But one of the first things is you have to be able to deliver what you say you can. But what is that result that you just know you can get people? I know for a fact because I've done it so many times, I can help people get 40,000 to $100,000 plus clients, months, or days. And I've also done those things for myself. So it's easy for me to pitch that with confidence, and I have the process to help people put that in place. So know that you can deliver the results. But what are those results? So if you're great at building out sales teams and you know that you can help drive teams to a 20 or a 30% bump in their revenue, you put that in your offer. And then then who is the ideal client for you for that. And look at the quantifiable results. So if you, let's just say you're taking a $1 million business, let's say a very small business, you can help them get a 20% bump in their revenue just by helping their sales team. That's a $200,000 revenue bump, right? Okay, so now would they pay you for that? And the thing is, once they do that, they can do it over and over and over again. So you might say, okay, over 3 years, that's going to be a 600. I mean, that's going to be actually more than 600,000 because now they're bumping 200,000 every year. That's just a math way to look at it. But what could you charge for that? Could you charge 100,000? Yeah, because you're teaching them the system and the process. So know the result, know the ideal clients. They have to be able to pay you, right? You want to make sure that if you're going to get those really premium prices, you have to go after people that have the means to pay you. So that's an important piece of it.
Yeah, can we highlight that for a second? Because please,
Yes.
please, like that has been one of the because early for me, and like I was working with people who they were basically all entertainment shows, right? They were people that wanted to talk about sports, their life at the bar, like those kinds of things. Getting those people to pay was hell.
Right.
It was the worst experience of my life. I'm chasing all these people. The shows start up and die immediately. Like you just can't. It was like, oh, this is fun and I can help them, but oh, well, there's no money. And so what are we doing it for? Like,
Yeah.
yes, please, for the love of God, go for people who actually have money and can pay you and understand the value of your service, at least
Yes.
enough where your argument can push them over the line. Like,
Well, and there's two things here to look at. So if you're going like consumers, go after affluent, go after luxury clients, go after people that are wealthy, go after the affluent market. If you are going after B2B, that money is replaceable. So go after businesses that are making money in their business. A lot of people go after startups. I see that all the time. Startups are broke, they're bootstrapping, they don't have money. It doesn't mean you can't help them, but they're not going to be your premium clients. They're just not, unless I have startups that I work with, but guess what? They already have other businesses and now they want to like break into coaching or break into consulting. Or the client that got the $400,000 deal, she already had a marketing agency, a social media agency, and she wanted to learn how to consult teams in other businesses and marketing teams. And so, but she didn't know how to put the offer together for that. So she already had means, and that was just a new revenue stream for her. So make sure you really understand where you can play when you're going after those higher level clients.
yeah, and mention it on your shows as well. Like for when you have a podcast, mention the kinds of work that you do. Use this as a funnel, like guide all that stuff to get. And I would assume that's the same thing your clients are doing, right? You tell all these people, hey, use the podcast, sell these big ticket items, and like use the show as a leverage point to go and sell high ticket.
Absolutely, but also put the right people on your shows and get on the right shows where either the person interviewing you might be able to be a client or they have the audience of the right people that could be clients. Like be strategic in what you're doing or you're going to burn up a lot of time. Like when you're getting started, Vince, and you just want to get out there and get into the spotlight, you can get on any show because it's all credibility, right? And it's going to build your experience. But once you start getting really defined and you start getting busy, you're going to have to really be careful with your time. And so it has to make sense. I'm not on like a lot of shows where their audience is stay-at-home moms or people that don't have businesses. I'm on B2B shows because that's where my people are.
Yeah, and that's it makes all the sense in the world. And saying no a lot is a massive benefit because yeah, these shows aren't a fit. Like it's your time and it's you're going to be putting up posts to promote all of that and whatever. Like it's just all this energy that's going to a place that doesn't ultimately help you or it doesn't help you enough compared to what else you could be doing with that time. So,
Also know what you stand against, like know what your values are and what aligns with you. So there are certain shows that have come to me and I'm like, I don't have that same belief system. So it doesn't feel okay, here's a good example. This is kind of a weird example, but I'm a Christian. So if somebody came to me with a witchcraft podcast,
Yeah.
I would not be on that. I would be like, yeah, no, that's not for me. That's a kind of a lame example, but
No, I have a witchcraft
yeah,
podcast, and
exactly.
I get, yeah, I'm sorry you're not
Exactly.
coming on to join us.
Yeah,
Uh,
so there's certain things that if you don't align with that, it's not gonna make sense, and it's not gonna be your audience, and even the host is probably not gonna be your person. So there's no you can use your time better just doing your own stage, just doing your own show.
See, that's what it's all about. It's just building your own thing, doing that consistently, being consistent in the message, getting it in all these platforms, and doing that as often as you can. So, I love I mean, this has been great. We've been going for like 35 minutes now.
Have we
This has been
really?
this is
Wow,
a
wow.
bullet train. This has gone so quickly. So, let me ask you this then, and just any final things if for people, business owners out there, a lot of solopreneurs, for example, trying to figure this out, and let's say in podcasting, they're trying to get this value out of their show. What's a piece of advice you would give them to try to, take this thing to the next level?
You really have to start with the strategy. If you don't start if you don't start with the strategy, you're going to probably burn up a lot of time and energy and not get the results that you want. When you know exactly what you're trying to accomplish with your podcast, now you can put the right pieces in place. You can have the right people on the show, or you can host your show in a way that it's going to bring you those results. I just full transparency, Vince, the whole first year of my podcast, I got zero. It was just money going out, money going out. And I had to take a step back and go, okay, Ann, you know about strategy. What did you not do here? And when I shifted everything changed. It's now one of my main drivers in my business, and I also teach it to my clients.
It's amazing. Yeah, and that's my whole business too. Like I take on all these existing shows. I go, "Hey, you got started. I know you're looking for something here. It's not lining up with those goals. Let's sort it out and put it together."
Mhm.
And it's a beautiful thing because when you see people, when it clicks for people of like, "Oh, I've been making this so much harder for myself than it needs to be." And it's all right here, just like that simple bit of alignment. I mean, it's a game changer. So I love all of that. And for everybody who now wants to follow you, keep up with you, where would you like them to go?
Well, you can Google me and choose your platform. I'm on YouTube, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook. I'm pretty active on all three of those platforms. I do have Instagram, although most of my clients aren't there. So, but you can find me. But you can also go to my website at annlcarden.com. And I have some free resources on there too. You can get my masterclass and some other things that I'm doing.
Yeah, and like I said, I watched the masterclass myself. Very interesting, very informative. So absolutely encourage all of that. And this has been awesome. And thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe to the newsletter to get more podcast insights. That link is in the show notes. And if you're feeling stuck with your podcast, let's figure it out together. Book a free 10-minute chat with me. The link to do that is also in the show notes. Talk to you next week.